This is the Fix Your Sciatica podcast. When I work with the clients that I get to meet on a daily basis, a large part of what I do, especially when it comes to pain management, is implementing exercises and stretches. But exercises and stretches all fall under the umbrella of what I like to call movement. And so rather than categorizing exercises and stretches, I like to say, today's your movement. This is what you're going to be focusing on. And today's guest is a very special guest because I've been following him for years. And his content has been so helpful. And one of the things I really resonated with what he has been teaching and sharing is this concept of movement re-education. And so today's guest is Ryan Hurst, founder of, when I first heard about him, Gymnastics Bodies, but now GMB. So Ryan, thank you so much for being on today's episode.
Yeah. Actually, it's Gold Medal Bodies. Gymnastics Bodies is another company. It's all.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's totally fine, man. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah,
it's an honor. I've been following you for a while, and so it's really cool to be able to see all the amazing stuff that you've developed, and I've been able to purchase some of your courses, and I really learned a lot. And so for the listeners who may have just heard of you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and what you've been up to?
absolutely. So, goodness gracious. So GMB has been around now. I'm going to get this incorrect, which is hilarious because it is my company, but I think officially it's been about 13 years now. As far as that, we started the company then. I have two business partners, Andy Fawcett and Jarlo Ilano. Andy is the big CEO. Is kind of a tongue-in-cheek, wink, kind of fun thing we say. CEO sounds super big and official, but then Jarlo, who's a physical therapist, and then myself. I'm basically just the dancing monkey. I just teach this stuff. So anyway, but my background, growing up, I did gymnastics all the way until I was 18 years old, as well as martial arts. I moved to Japan when I was 20, officially moved there. I visited there before, but I moved there permanently when I was 20 years old, spent 28 years there. Last year, actually moved my family back to the United States, but I've been involved with martial arts pretty much since I believe it was 13 years old when I started martial arts. I'm 51 right now, still doing it, actually still teaching it too, which is fun. But coming back to GMB, what we're just trying to do is get people to realize, focus on their physical autonomy and just be able to move in a way that's going to help them so that they can be able to do the things in their life that they enjoy. It's not a matter of doing more exercise. It's a matter of finding what you need in order to help you, like I said, to be able to do the things in your life that you want to do and enjoy, whether that be squatting down to the ground to play with your kids, surfing, or doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like you're doing right now. So, yeah.
Awesome. What a cool story. And so, we're talking about this concept of, we'll say, autonomy, movement autonomy, the ability to do things. And going off of your website and the most recent stuff you've been sharing was this concept of, we'll say, unlocking stiffness. And I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to stretching and exercise and moving, is trying to overcome the aches and pains that we encounter as we get a little bit older. And so this concept of aches and pains, but it all often actually ends up being related to either stiffness, where there's not enough motion, extreme flexibility, which is too much motion, and this concept of even just the operation of muscles, whether they're not firing enough, so they're extremely weak, or they're too strong and they're doing too much of the work. When it comes to stiffness in general, from what you've seen, especially when we'll take a deeper dive into movement re-education, but from a stiffness standpoint, tell us a little bit more about, from what you've seen, what your experiences are when it comes to, one, how would you define what stiffness is? And in a general standpoint, what's the best way to unlock stiffness? Because I think that was a very powerful statement that you've had in your content.
Yeah, lots to unpack there. This is fabulous. So One thing that you brought up that I think is great that sometimes people actually don't address is the fact that people can actually be too bendy, too flexible. Hypermobile mobility is a thing. That's actually my case with my elbows and my knees. But what we typically see more than that are people who do not have the necessary range of motion to be able to do the things that they want in a safe manner. So to me, if you're looking at stiffness, really, it's of course relevant to that person, different degrees, but stiffness is something that is not allowing you to be able to feel and move in a way that you would like to. And so for me, stiffness and unlocking stiffness, therefore, is a matter of slowly increasing your range of motion so that you're starting to feel better in your body, therefore allowing you to be able to do the things that you want to do in your life. And so it's not just a physical thing, it can also be a mental thing as well. And so the key here is, as I mentioned, working to increase that range of motion, doing it slowly, being consistent. And so by doing that over time, you're going to feel things start to go away. And that's what we're after, is you actually starting to, I wouldn't say forget, but you wake up in the morning and rather than saying, oh, there's that stiffness again, you wake up and then you realize, oh my goodness, I'm not tight like I used to be, whatever that might be for you. And so stiffness, again, many different ways that this can come about, whether you don't move your body at all, whether you move your body too much by either overloading the body, possibly having someone on top of you trying to hug you very violently on the ground, or it could be a matter of some general things. A great example here would be me moving to the United States and actually driving and sitting twice to 3 times the amount that I normally would. I found myself becoming stiff, which sounds funny coming from the mobility guy, but it's all relevant, as I mentioned. And so what it is simply being aware, not just of what's going on in your body, but also looking at the outside lifestyle factors that could contribute to this. I won't go into diet or things like that, but there's many factors that we could look at. But the main thing that we're trying to address is, what range motion do you have right now? What do we need to work on? And then what is the protocol to do that? So this is actually our triple A framework that we have, based upon my business partner, Jarlo. He's a physical therapist, as I mentioned, something that he would use with his patients. And we use it in GMB with all of our clients. And that's where you're using the AAA framework, where you assess where you're at, you address the particular issues that you have, and then you apply the proper protocol that's going to help you to get where you want to go.
I love that. I think it's important, especially when you're dealing with movement, even just lifestyle. I think a lot of people think, all right, well, I want to get to X goal, so I'm just going to follow this. And most of the time it'll work okay, but in order for us to really implement the best tools, the best techniques, movements, we have to figure out, okay, like, where are we at today? What is the information that we have bringing to this table? What's the context, right? Being able to get into this, because and that was one of the, and your partner,
Jarlo,
he probably also got fed up with the typical route with the physical therapy profession, because people would come in being like, okay, well, I have back pain. It's like, okay, well, people have back pain will probably have weak glutes. And this is all just based off of an assumption that we were taught in school, right? So it's like, okay, they have weak glutes, so I'm going to give them these 15 different exercises to get their glutes stronger, not realizing that their glutes were actually probably plenty strong enough. And I see this a lot, and especially like when I'm working with weightlifters, and they're like, oh, I think I need to strengthen my glutes and my core. And I say, well, you step under a 300-pound barbell, you actually have a pretty strong core. If you didn't have a strong core, you would literally fold over like an accordion. I would, in those words. And so being able to look at, okay, what are we looking at? What's this information? Okay, now that we kind of have an idea of what we think we need to be implementing. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. But it's going to be a consistent reassessment to make sure that what we're doing is actually, in fact, working. Right?
Absolutely. And that is such a good point, is that it's not one thing. For example, like when you go into a physical therapist and you say, fix me, it's not like that's like going to happen right there on that table. It might, I mean, but there's so many different factors involved with this. So again, what we're really trying to do is say, hey, what's going on? Let's assess the situation. I think the one thing, moving and going deeper into this, is we also need to be realistic about this. And so a lot of people have these thoughts that should be a particular way. They have to be a particular way. Instead of really looking at, okay, what's going to be good for you where you are right now. And if you can really, take away all of that extra stuff and just say, it's all right. It's okay where you are right now. Okay, let's just work on that. And just get to the heart of the matter and be realistic. For example, I said, if you are under the bar a lot, then you're probably plenty strong in the core. Your glutes are probably firing just fine. Okay, so what are the other things going on in your life that might contribute if you do this? And let's take a look at that and really on doing that, just bringing more awareness to what's gone so that we can be consistent, like I said, and do the things that are going to be good for you, address the issue, and then apply the proper protocol.
This episode is brought to you by the Patient Advocate Program. Are you tired of not having support between your rehab sessions? Introducing the Patient Advocate Program, and we're focused on your recovery, and we're offering you 24/7 access to a doctorate of physical therapy. Stop waiting in line to be seen and stop spending hours doing long exercise programs. Imagine being able to get all of your care delivered straight to your phone. Best of all, it's affordable. We believe everyone deserves top-notch relief without breaking the bank. So why wait? Take control of your health today and visit ptpatientadvocate.com and book your free call with our experts. Yeah, 100%. And so as we were talking about this stiffness and the movement itself, it really goes on to the way I categorize stiffness and movement. There's many different systems that are obviously in play, but the three ones that I find that really come to mind, that especially movement specialists like yourself and then PTs like myself can actually help out, is one, the physiological aspect, like the actual muscle fibers. Can we actually change the muscle fibers? And that's really helpful, especially when it comes to stretching and movement itself. We also have the neurological.
Sure.
It's just being able, is our brain's ability to actually allow our muscles to move in a certain way. And also, I think you from the flexibility of the mind as well. Yes. If we have a very rigid mind, it's very hard for that to translate on over to movement. And then we have this concept of like the neurophysiological. So actually how the mind and the brain can actually interact with the physiology. And then another big piece, sorry, I skipped over it, was actually the anatomical. In some cases, there are going to be some true bony or muscular limitation, joint capsule limitations as well. Yeah. So just wanted to bring that up. Let's bring this into the lens of people who are dealing with back pain and sciatica, right? And so
absolutely.
From your experience, the people that you worked with, the people that Darla has worked with, what are some of the common trends that you would see or in regards to missing pieces or overdoing it? What have you guys seen with the number of people that you've worked with?
Now, lots of stuff here. And you brought up something I think is some of those 3 points. And one thing that we're looking at is when it comes to stiffness and, for example, even pain management. So we have the actual range of motion that might be pain as well is the side of it. So the fear of actually have that limited range of motion, you can be scared of actually going into particular range of motion. So this can actually keep you from to do something that might be good for you. And so when we are looking at, for example, back pain or something like that, people, as I mentioned, might think it's just, but for us, we like to focus more on, moving more and better. So that can really be focusing on one thing that I actually fabulous. And also, you don't see a whole lot of here in the United States is getting down to and then up off of the floor throughout the day. And so this is huge. And most people don't. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't sit in here, but trying to spend time approaching the floor and then moving around down on the floor work wonders. You're not necessarily strained. You're working to ability. But the other thing is that you're creating these fabulous mental and physical. You're bridging that, because you are creating confidence in your body, which therefore can also work towards other things that is going on that could be holding you back. Oh, old, I can't do that. Well, if you don't do it, maybe you can't do it. Really slowly working to be able to get into particular positions, I think can be good. And specifically at sciatica pain, of course we have mechanical or something like herniated disc is nerve, or it can be inflammatory due to an injury. But first and foremost, of course, go see a professional if you are in tons of pain. But once you get there are a few things that we like to look. As I mentioned before, it's slow and controlled movements. It's really going to help with the pain. And in other words, so if you do a move and there is more pain in doing the move, then you're probably doing too much, right? So looking at it that way, I think is good. And this kind of being aware of your body, not just doing movement. You think you should be doing something. Comes in AAA framework of really assessing going on, and then doing these things in a controlled manner in order to help. Now, an example could be simple. If it's okay if I could jump into this, just an example could be where you're just lying on your back, feet elevated, and you're simply pulling your knee twists with one leg. And one here is not just a particular, but you're bringing awareness to see what you can do. And I think this is very important, and this is really what we're trying to get our GMB people better at doing, is thinking that you can own a particular movement. It's what can you, and then going in and out of that range, and then again using that assessment: is this helping or hurting? Because our bodies get back as long as we're open to that feedback. And this is the awareness portion of it. So that's one example. Another thing could be where if you're sitting in here and having your foot on a table, and you bring your chest up in order to slightly arch your lumbar, and then you go in and out of that position. And yes, that itself can help, but again, awareness to the body and say, okay, where are you feeling? And that can lead to something else in order to possibly help you. Like, might be good to do standing leg swings to the front, to the side. And so rather than thinking that, I'm just going to do this, I'm not going to do anything. It's a matter of what can you do safely, and then kind of pushing that range of motion. You might still have pain, but if you're doing it and that pain dissipates, if you can move into that discomfort and do it safely, and this is also then into the here, remember that you're not holding your breath and bracing, not only restricting that motion, it also means that you're holding fear. And so there's the mental and the physical portion of it as well. So by being able to have a natural breath when you're doing this and out of this position, again, your awareness, not just the physical body of this, but you're beyond that fear of thinking that, oh, I'm going to have this pain, I'm stuck with this pain, and there's nothing I can do about it. So you're being proactive. And again, it all comes down to awareness. So lots that I just said, but yeah.
I love it. I mean, it's huge. You brought up a very interesting thing. A lot of people will say specific, especially out here in the US, there's like a certain age that we reach where you pretty much have very little opportunity to get down to the floor.
Yes.
And truth be told, if you don't use it, you lose it.
And exactly.
I remember, so I graduated PT school and retired from collegiate swimming. I transitioned into CrossFit. Okay. And CrossFit, like a lot of people look at CrossFit and there's like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of burpees. And I think ultimately, like burpees, if you break down into the structure of what a burpee is, it's getting down to the floor and standing back
They
up.
can be
And
fabulous. Yes. Yes.
yeah, and so you have this opportunity, but the reality is that if you haven't gotten down to the floor and gotten back up, doing something like a burpee is going to be extremely
Oh,
stressful,
oh,
extremely anxiety inducing, and can actually cause a whole bunch of issues.
yeah.
So I think I mean this is great, Ryan, because in a way you're giving people permission to say, once a day, see if you can
Yeah.
get down to the floor and get back up, right? And
Yeah.
this is actually something when I work with my geriatric population, people who are recovering from hip and knee replacements, before I actually discharge them from care, we'll actually spend 3 or 4 sessions practicing getting all the way down to the floor and then getting
Fabulous.
back up, because
Fabulous.
to be able to get back up is extremely hard. It's fear inducing, and it's amazing how much even just the level of comfort people experience when they are able to get down to floor and back up. But then also, and one of the great things about something like judo or jujitsu, it's like, because you're getting down to floor, you learn how to fall, you get back up. I'll tell you, the moment that I started rolling around on the floor, not like I was battling with a ton of injuries to begin with, but my body felt even better. And then during the pandemic, when I didn't do jiu-jitsu for a while, I started to notice, ooh, my body's getting a little stiff. And I would actually practice just rolling around on the floor. My wife would be looking at me being like, what are you doing? But it's really, really beneficial to be able to just do that. There's so many pieces to that. And I mean, it ultimately brings into the concept of awareness of the body. And I think it's so easy for us as humans, especially because if we're, and I say this a lot on previous podcasts, one of the big things, there are many things that separate us from the animals, but I think one of the things that is so fascinating is our ability to push past those physiological cues that say you've had enough. And it allows us to do a couple of, we can push past human performance, right? We've developed such amazing athletic abilities, but also it's kind of to our detriment as well, because if we're sitting for 2-3 hours, our bodies are saying we need to get up. But if we can say we bypass that and we just sit for another 2 to 3 hours, our bodies are going to be stiff. And it's so easy for us to ignore those signals because we're able to really build up. But sorry, you looked like you wanted to add something to that.
No, this is fabulous. And it's just so interesting. And you said some great stuff in there. And I think I always tell people, especially recently, like, are you addressing the floor? And are you getting down to the floor? And they're like, hey, I got wrist issues, my hips are sore, and my knees are aching, and my ankles and lower back, and blah, blah. And I'm just like, they're like, what exercises should I do? And rather than get angry, I don't get angry, but basically it's just like, just move around. And they're like, well, I do, move around. I'm like, yeah, but like, do you put your hands on the floor? Do you push away from the floor? Do you twist your body in these, and just, it can be so simple. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it can be so simple. And again, it's just crazy coming to the United States, how much I sit, how much movement I don't do compared to what I did, simply for the fact that when we were in Japan, no furniture and little things like that, where you're forced to do certain things. Real quick, I remember so I went to college over in Japan, and I remember going into one of the toilets in when I first went to Japan. It was a squatty potty. It was literally just a hole in the floor. Very nice, very clean, very nice. But you walk in there and think in the beginning, oh my goodness, but then it hits you. Oh, every single morning, this is what I need to use. And you either get really, really, really good at squatting down and maneuvering, doing that, or you make a mess. So nowadays, of course, it's different. They have Western style toilets in Japan, but I actually preferred that. My parents didn't when they came to visit, but the reason why is because they weren't used to it. They don't address the ground. So I think that if we can look at little things like that and make them habits, I'm not saying you should do the squatty potty, but what I'm saying is, addressing the ground. And maybe rather than sitting on the sofa when you watch TV, how about you just go to the ground, lie on the ground, get up, do something like that. And I think that can actually make a huge improvement. Again, looking at improving wrist mobility, strength, as well as spatial awareness, which I think is also, I think we're losing a lot of spatial awareness simply the fact that we don't use it like we used to, unless you're doing something like a martial art.
100%. I just had to throw it out there. Noodles taste a lot better when you're sitting down at the bottom of a squat. I'm just gonna
Awesome.
put it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I went to Vietnam in 2016, and you just go to the roadside stalls in Vietnam and just eat pho, and it's like the best thing ever.
Heck
and
yeah,
I'm
man.
sitting there and being like, I'm in my element. This is fantastic.
Dude,
But spatial awareness, it's huge because I'll tell you what, I think, especially when it comes to when I'm evaluating people who are dealing with sciatica and low back pain, or even just neck and shoulder pain as well. The first thing that I'll often look at is people's posture.
Sure.
And ideally, in order for you to get a good, accurate measurement or view of what your posture is like, guys, take your shirts off, wear shorts, stand in front of a mirror. Ladies, you can keep a sports bra on, and really look at yourself. And the majority of the time, the majority of the people I work with are only brought, their posture is only brought to their attention when they're actually looking at themselves in the mirror, or when someone actually says, hey, you look really hunched over. But we're not very aware. And I love the fact that you have spatial awareness, is being able to just being in tune with your body, which a large part of my understanding with what your programs have been doing, and a lot of what I do, especially with the clients I work with, is really this concept of movement re-education, right? Helping people understand and learn how to move, in their bodies. And so with everything, and you've covered this a little bit already, but if we can reiterate, we have exercise, which I prefer to call movement. It's not just simply doing a specific repetition or focusing on a specific exercise. We're really establishing a mind-body connection when it comes to movement, and allows for more freedom and flexibility. And especially when it comes to pain management, creating a safe space for us to move. So can you tell us a little bit more and elaborate on your philosophy of this concept of movement re-education, spatial awareness and all that?
Sure. So I love that you don't say exercise. We don't either. As a matter of fact, we don't even use the term workout. We call them sessions. And the reason why is because of this physical education, re-education, if you will. We use sessions because what we're doing is practicing movement. We're learning and bringing awareness into what's going on in our bodies. We don't focus on performing repetitions, a set number of repetitions, or a set number of sets of those repetitions. We're looking actually at using time constraints, if you will. The reason for that is because we want you to be able to just set a time, but we want you to focus on each individual movement. And what I like to say is, I only want you to do one repetition as beautifully as you can, and then try another. And if we get so focused on chasing repetition, then what can happen is we simply are trying to achieve a number, and the quality of movement can actually dissipate. And the trouble is that on a piece of paper, or even, for example, yesterday, if you got 12 repetitions of a particular movement, today, if you don't get to that number, you think you might have failed. And that's just not how things work. And so this is why we use auto-regulation in terms of you focus on what you can do that day to the best of your ability, and that's good enough. A lot of people don't like hearing that. But if you are good enough times over time, that leads to greatness, to be perfectly honest, rather than doing something that is not good for you in the moment, that breaks your body, that then doesn't allow you to perform the next day, that forces you to take a long time off because you injured yourself, and therefore you never getting anywhere. So I'd almost rather have you perform more moderate level sessions, because that level of moderacy over a year adds up to being at a very high level. And so, of course, it doesn't mean that you don't push yourself from time to time. But what I'm saying is that when you aren't feeling something, that's okay. You're good. You don't need to do more, but just do it at a quality that is extremely high for that time. Then when you are feeling really good, do more. And if we can just look at it that way, life can be pretty easy and you can make some great gains. And so the way that we actually structure our sessions, and I want to come back to something real quick. So recently teaching these martial art classes that I have, I base everything around three things: posture, breathing, mindset. That's it. You want to maintain your posture, control your breathing, and then keep your mindset, because you want to disrupt your opponent's posture to control their breathing and take away their mindset. And that's really what it is. And so they get sick of me always saying, how's your posture? How's your posture? How's your posture? How's your posture? And the thing is, and this is related actually to what I'm getting at with our sessions, is that posture comes through having proper structure. And when you have proper structure, then you can put your body into alignment, which allows you to create a solid structure. And you can't have that if, like you said, you're hunched over all the time. If your head is out of position, it's going to just do horrible things with your breath as well as your mindset. It's not going to allow you to be able to be in a good mindset for what you need. And so coming back to this is why in the movements where we teach, I'm always focused on a single cue for each particular movement that we're after. This is setting you up in a good mindset because it's allowing you to only focus on one single thing. That one single thing allows you to focus on that particular position of your body, the alignment that you need to be into. And then with that, another thing is that it allows you to create confidence in the body, which then with practice, your breathing becomes natural. So then it becomes a part of you and it's a natural movement pattern then. And the way that we actually look at structuring our sessions is that it's called the 5 Ps. We start off with a prep. The prep isn't necessarily so much as a warm-up in that it's a full body warm-up. It's looking at what you need to do to prepare yourself for what you're practicing that day. And then once we move into the practice portion of this, I already mentioned how we do that. We look at time. And you look at a particular skill and you practice a skill, because everything in life is a skill, period. Everything you do, whether that be a barbell squat, whether it be a clean and thrust with a kettlebell, whether it be simply just trying to go down to the floor and get back up off the floor, you're practicing movements. And if you don't allow yourself the opportunity and set aside time for practice, then you're simply going through the motions. And so practice done slowly, controlled manner, allows you to bring better awareness to the body and see where you might need more work somewhere within that movement. Next, we have something that doesn't really occur in most people's workouts, and that is play. Play is missing from the majority of the workouts out there. Play doesn't just mean that you're just running around mindlessly, jumping from this to that and, on the monkey bars. That is great. But play for us is taking a movement that you're already very comfortable with and then trying to take it outside of the box that you've put it in. So you're simply moving beyond that range of that movement. So it's kind of similar to actually when you're looking at, rehabilitation, if you will. We're exploring our options. It's exploration. And we can only explore if we feel confident already in a particular movement. So therefore, you wouldn't take a movement that you've never performed before and expect yourself to play. If we look at it music-wise, it's the same. How can you noodle around on your guitar if you don't even know this chord formation? Okay, so you have to already have a certain understanding of that thing in order to move beyond that and explore. Now, again, we set up a time constraint for that where it might be a minute, it might be 5 minutes, but during that time, as well as during practice, it doesn't mean that we perform that movement continuously throughout that time. We will perform 1 repetition, possibly 2 of that movement, step away, give ourselves a break, take a rest. When we are ready, we'll go back and perform that movement again. And so this is how we can bring awareness to what we're doing rather than just chasing repetitions. The 4th one is push. And this is literally where you're going to push yourself. So this is where the majority of people live, This is the workout. This can be the conditioning component of it, whether that be endurance strength, whether it be actual just looking at improving endurance for itself. But again, what does endurance mean? It's going to be dependent upon what that particular person needs. So in this, though, again, we're still looking at using these timed periods where it might be 45 seconds of performing a particular movement. And in this case, during push, we do not stop. But we can't expect a person to perform a movement with the highest quality and perform that movement with something that they've never done before. So what you do when you are pushing yourself during this time is you're using a variation of the movement that is quite easy for you performing one repetition. But because you're performing multiple repetitions of this, then what you're doing is you're increasing work capacity. You're adding in volume. You're getting in good quality repetitions. And the beauty of using time is that you could start with, let's say that we're performing a chin-up, and you can do, let's say, I don't know, 10 fabulous full chin-ups. But let's say during that 45 seconds, you're not able to perform those 10 full repetitions. That's perfectly fine. You can make adjustments to that movement and keep going, where you jump up to the bar and then perform on a slow negative. So the beauty of this is that you're making adjustments so that you can still focus on quality movement, high quality of that movement for an appropriate level, at an appropriate level for you. And so this is how we do this with push. And this is also where our stretching can lie as well. So you can finish up with stretches, because a stretch shouldn't just be nice and easy and, I'm just going to sit here and watch TV. We actually want to focus on pushing ourselves to that end range in a safe manner that's going to allow us to improve our range of motion later. And we don't use just passive stretching. We'll pulse into the movement, about 5 pulses, that end range, then hold that end range 10 seconds, possibly 20 seconds, and then repeat that a few times. But many different protocols that we can use for push, but push, as I mentioned, literally is where you're pushing yourself. The last that we have, that I don't know any place that really does this too much. I mean, sometimes, but that's ponder. And so you actually think about, okay, what went well, what didn't go so well, and what could I do differently the next time I do this? So by bringing attention to what you're doing and what you did do, then it's going to allow you to be better in your next session. Now, I want to say something about the session as well. A lot of people think that if you didn't hit the numbers that you set out to do that day, that you're a bad person or you failed or something like that. My take on that is this: if you learned something during that session, that was a success. And that's it. Because by learning something, you can then apply it to the next session. And that means that the next session is going to be better than the previous one. So therefore, you're making improvements, and that's success to me. And I learned that the hard way, many years of thinking that I fit particular workouts because I didn't hit a particular number. And I would get super frustrated because maybe I wasn't able to do my handstand like I could the day before, or that particular skill I was working on. I wasn't able to roll or throw this person in my judo like I could the day before. And man, I had such a crappy session. Well, okay. Let's take a step back and say, why was that the case? Oh, you know what? I was actually up all night and so tired because my daughter couldn't sleep and she had a cold, and therefore I was just exhausted, and I tried to do some things that actually I probably shouldn't be. Okay, good. We then take a look at what we really, really needed that day, and we can apply that to the next one. And that is having more self-awareness, using auto-regulation. And instead of going into the session saying, I'm going to crush it today, say, you know what? I'm going to start my prep. I'm going to start moving my body. I'm at least going to step on the mat. I'm going to figure out where my body is. Then I'm going to make adjustments according to what I need that day, rather than what is written on a piece of paper, and use that based upon what's going on in my lifestyle. So lots there, but that is basically how we lay things out here in GMB.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And so, yeah, we have these 5 Ps. It really, again, boils down to this concept of self-awareness. And as you were telling this all to me, I'm just writing the words feel, feel.
What it is, man.
We live in a world where, yes, it is important for scientists, and like even when we're making decisions, it's prudent for us to make decisions based off of the facts and the data that we've gotten. But when it comes to your health, listening to what you're feeling is going to serve way better than what you're going to see on a piece of paper or whatnot.
And just said something that I really believe in. Does this serve me? Does this serve me? I think that is just the key here. Just because your coach, just because someone on the interwebs tells you that you should be doing something doesn't really mean it's going to be good for you. Does it serve you? If it doesn't serve you, don't do it. But this is also very important because it comes back to our why. And I think that we need to do some deep diving into really what is our why? Why are we doing the things that we want to do? I want to have six-pack abs. Why? Because the thing is, once you get those six-pack abs, then what?
It's like, what's next? Yeah,
exactly.
And I think, and that's one of the big challenges, especially with people, and say that, like we'll say in the fitness industry, is that like we push ourselves so hard.
Oh yeah.
Because we want to get those six-pack abs, but little do we know that like truth be told, six-pack abs are really made in the kitchen, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's great. It's actually a lot safer that way too. You don't have to worry about pushing yourself in such aggressive forms.
Sure.
And it is important for us to be able to wind back. And I think especially like the American fitness industry, we've gotten to a point where pushing yourselves every single day is kind of like people wear it kind of like a badge of honor. And the reality, it's like, yes, you can don't push yourself for the sake of pushing yourself. You push yourself to get the results, but in some cases, and we see this a lot in every standard strength and conditioning text, is like once someone reaches a plateau, you don't push harder.
Right.
In fact, actually, like what separates a lot of the professional athletes, yes, they are training at a certain level, it's their job, but also they're tweaking every other aspect, because if they train at the intensity of what people think, then they're going to be battling with injuries left and right.
And that's a great point, is what we all we see is what they want to see. I got to be honest, it's just like Instagram. It's not going to be 100% every single day. It cannot be. It cannot be. And again, like you said, we also see all of the nutrition, the particular nutritionist, their physical therapist, their, the massage kit, whatever. There's so many other things involved. What serves you? What do you find? What you want? Find the simplest way that, and just be consistent. And it's not going to be easy, so you got to create good habits. But one thing I do like is the easier you make it for you to start doing the thing, the better you're going to reach. So if someone comes to me and they're like, "Hey, I have 100 push-ups every single day for a month," no, you're not. Because be one day where you might not be feeling it, and maybe couldn't get those 100 push-ups, and you're going to be like, oh, again, you might feel bad. There might be the where you don't have the time to do it, so you skip it, and therefore you failed. But if you made it so stupid just to start, just focus on just doing one push-up a day for a month. I know that sounds super silly, but chances are you can do one push-up, and you're probably not going to stop at push-up. Okay, but if you say I'm gonna do one a day, that's a great place to start. And you do it, and after a month, you end up doing all that stuff. It's simple. It should be easy, but like I said before, on those days where you're doing more, by all means, do more. But this is regulation, auto regulation is what we're getting at, and this is really can be consistent for years of time. And again, I get like for an hour just on auto regulation, but also
Yeah, no, this is really great stuff. I mean, we've covered a lot today, and it's so helpful and insightful. It's also really exciting to be able to hear it from someone such as yourself. And so, if we were to boil down for these listeners, so like when they leave this episode, that they know that they can have 3 things that they can do to improve their movement re-education and make them feel more confident and get more in tune with their body, what would those 3 action steps be?
This is a great question, and I pretty much tell this to everybody. Focus on being more aware of how you're standing, sitting, walking. Hold yourself throughout the day. Just aware of it. Okay. The reason why is chances are, if you bring awareness, you're going to change, and you're going straighter possibly. You'll close your mouth. Start breathing those rather than breathing through your mouth. Okay. But by being aware of how you are sitting and walking and things like that, you can start change, right? The other thing would be spending more time getting down to the ground and then up off the floor. I mentioned this. I think that's just really important. The other thing, and it's kind of a part of this, but there's one thing that all those is focus on the big 3 and the big 3: wrists, shoulders, and hips. And you can do this with just one thing. We call it the bear walk. And the coolest is by doing the bear walk, you're actually number 2, which is getting down to the floor. Bear walk is simply where you place your hands and your feet on the ground, and you just push your hips up into the air as high, and then you just start walking, and then walking backward. That's it. Driving the hips up into the air as high as you can with your hands on the floor. That's it. Don't even worry about your heels to the floor. It doesn't matter. But by doing that, you're actually improving the strength, as well as control in your shoulders, improving scapular health, because you're going to have scapular elevation, pushing your hips up into the air. You're strengthening there. You're also looking at improving lumbar, as well as rear chain mobility, strength, and control by locomotor paddle. So those 3 things are there. Awareness of what you're doing throughout the day. Get down to the floor, get back up off the floor, and you can do that by using the bear walk to help improve your wrist, shoulder, and hips. There you go.
Beautiful. Listeners, I'm going to find a video of Ryan's bear walk, and we'll put that in the show notes so that you can get a cool example. One thing that came to mind, I think, 100% getting down to the floor is huge. I often, when I work with people and they're like really scared of getting down to the floor, a really good, easy way for people to work on that is to actually start in bed. So I'll often have people lay on their bed, and then I'll say, roll onto your stomach, get into your hands and knees. And then that already starts to make it a lot less scary.
That's
so
good.
Just wanted to add that there.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today and your expertise. This is really awesome, really eye-opening, and it just continues to confirm how brilliant and awesome you are. So for the listeners out there who are like, oh my gosh, like Ryan's like in GMB, like there's some really cool stuff. What's the best way to get more information, get in touch with you, stuff like that?
Yeah, so I started doing construction. Good timing, actually. Yeah. The easiest way is just gmb.io. But any social media platform, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, if you just type in GMB Fitness, we'll pop up.
Beautiful. Listeners, contact information will actually be put in the show notes. Listeners, awesome guest. We got the P's and also the action steps, movement re-education, and being in touch with how you feel, self-awareness. There's a lot of really good stuff, a lot of things that will help you recover, but also help you stay recovered as well. So Ryan, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you got some help from today's podcast. And for more info, check us out at ifixyoursciatica.com. Have a fantastic and pain-free day. No patient-therapist relationship is formed by listening to this podcast. We are not providing medical advice, and all information should be confirmed by a medical provider.